Evening, y'all. How's it going? Welcome to another Lockdown Live chat. As usual, joined with my awesome co-host, the purveyor of all things Dracona Media, Mr. Alec Larson. How's it going?
Oh, it's okay. It's kind of cold. And, because the SA government doesn't like us to have nice things, we're going to have a dark night later as well. So, yeah.
Yep. We've been blessed by rolling blackouts of load shedding, which to anybody of our international community watching, you can't understand it. It's Africa. It's weird. It sucks. But here we are on a Thursday night here to give you guys some regular content because we missed out on having our fun on Sunday. This time, we thought, why not shake it up? We're in the middle of the year, have a little bit of a 6 months in SA metal review, if you will. So, yeah, we're going to kick things off from January. Quick little disclosure note. These are our opinions. Obviously, we're not to try to step on any toes. We have our musical interests and we respect everybody that makes music regardless of the genre or sound or production. But we will get into that in a bit. So, Alec, what do you say? You think we should get started?
Let's go.
Awesome. Well, let's kick it off in January. We're not going to be mentioning any dates, but we will be going monthly. So we'll just go chronologically from the order of when the releases were actually visible to us. So kicking it off, beginning of January, we have a band that I don't know about Alec, but I'd never heard of until I heard this track, Your Cynical Sanity, with the single Doomtown, with a awesome YouTube vid to go with it. Man, this is pummeling. It's almost like deathcore with a bit of traditional death metal like sensibilities sprinkled in. Got some crazy like drops. The vocal ranges are mental, and the production on the drums was something to behold. If you guys haven't heard it, go check it out on Slam Worldwide. It is pummeling. But yeah, Alec, what are your thoughts on them?
Yeah, like you said, it's absolutely crushing. Deathcore. It's very rare that I get the opportunity to say that, this is some like next level stuff. This puts international acts that have been doing it for years to shame. Perfect production. One thing that was a treat, which I've noticed some deathcore bands are doing a lot more now, is the use of some symphonic pads, which they had just in the background. So yeah, killer job by these guys. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, quality stuff. Can't wait to hear more from them. So yeah, we're going to move on to a project that you have a little bit of a personal connection with. That's right, the Sepulchre of Man debut single Curtain Call, released on MMD Black around about the middle of January. So yeah, my thoughts personally, as somebody that's into my symphonic, what do you call it, blackened death, it really hits all the notes. The literal pads that are in it with the melodic piano sounds, your lyrics over it, the double delays as the chorus goes on Curtain Call. It's just, yeah, it's one of my favorite tracks to come out at the moment. So I guess let me actually ask you, because you're actually impartial here. What were your thoughts going into this track when you went into making it with the guys?
So a little bit of history, I guess, behind what Sepulchre of Man is about and why it started was within the metal community. There's like a massive gap between the different types of people that make metal music. You have the people that prioritize, drinking and smoking weed over the future, and they think that their band's just going to make it just because. And I've been in bands like that. And this was Sepulchre of Man was like 3 working professionals, you know, with like-minded vision of bringing quality. And the idea behind it was to never actually play locally. You know, it was a band that's formed to have music to play overseas and never play in South Africa.
Awesome. And there's new material possibly on the horizon?
There's lots of new material, but I just need to get to my lazy ass into gear and actually record vocals. Like most of the albums written from a music standpoint and from a lyric standpoint, but I just need to, you know, finish one thing off at a time.
Well, we're going to get back to you because we're not done with you yet. We got you sprinkled along all of these first 2 quarters of the year. So moving things along, pulling things back down to Cape Town. That's right, Pyjama Planet. I believe the single was called Storm the Gate. It was the first proper music video that they did. Really gets the tone of a melodic death metal instrumental band. You can see that they're well gelled and they enjoy performing with each other, and it really does show on this. I think us having that chat with Mark definitely shone some light on the idea of adding more bombastic orchestration and really just keeping it about the sounds in the music and not necessarily having it overridden by vocals, as you would say. So yeah, it was a killer track. Got lots of cool hookish leads, and yeah, he's really quite a talent, that dude. So yeah, Alec, what were your thoughts?
Dude, it was such a great song and such a fun music video. I really do enjoy it when bands like do something like that, not take themselves too seriously, you know, like wrestling in pajamas and that kind of thing. And I mean, it's not that they don't take themselves seriously from a musical standpoint, because the music is brilliant. I think if we look at Mark, he's what Andy Gillian would be if he was in South Africa with a 7-string and smoking lots of weed.
Living in Cape Town. No doubt. Well, yeah, shout out to Andy also. Salute from South Africa if you're watching. But yeah, let's jump all the way back to also kind of a one-man band project, if you will. A hell of a talent. The man, the myth, the legend, Dead Man Risen. Mr. Sean Mitchell. He put out his album, Die With Me. It is just another step in the evolution, production-wise, sonically, a lot more industrial type of feel. I guess you would kind of say he was going a bit more back to his roots in terms of Vampire. Lots of big hooks. His vocal range has always like hit the spot. He just has that mid to higher level like scream that just it just really suits the music so well. And the whole album has like a lot of different like time changes and tempo changes, but like always has that consistent rhythm of something to keep you bopping your head. So it was really, yeah, well done to Sean. Can't wait to hear more from him. Sure, it's going to sound completely different to this then. That's kind of how he rolls. So yeah, Alec, your thoughts?
Yeah, so I'm always a big fan of Sean's music. What's really cool about this album is he's a massive nu metal fan, and there was some of those nu metal hooks that he introduced, and like some different vocals that we like not necessarily used to hearing from him. You know, some of the weird cleans, the typical nu metal style stuff. But like you said, vocally, he embodies what melodeath vocalists should sound like. You know, he is a perfect melodeath vocalist. You know, so yeah, it's a good job by him.
Quality stuff. Again, also can't wait to hear what he comes up with. It's always a treat, always something to keep you on your toes. So yeah, we're going to be jumping all the way up to Pretoria. a bit of an interesting release. I guess the best way to kind of like break down Riddlebreak with their new EP. How would you pronounce the name, Alec? I don't want to butcher it.
Architeuthis.
Architeuthis. Well, basically, killer artwork from the get-go. I love the octopus theme. The music itself produced solidly. It has like a serious, genty, almost metalcore type feel. Like when they have the crushing hard parts in it, it's like really like solid and in your face. It's likewise when they break into the more melodic parts, the more I guess you would call like vocally driven progressive parts of the track. It kind of like takes things in a different direction. But yeah, in terms of a 4-track EP, it was really well done, well produced. I like the vibe of them. I would really be curious to see how they translate this live. I have not seen them. I know quite a few people have, obviously, but yeah. Yeah, well done to the guys. Really solid release. So yeah, Alec, your thoughts?
Yeah, so like you said, it's high production value. They go with the Clinton Watts, who's like the metalcore king down here in Joburg. He's their producer. Yeah, I've played with Riddlebreak a couple of times, and yeah, I mean, the energy from their live show is translated here into this EP. It's very typical their sound, you know, guitar leads backed up by violins. There were some instances though where it felt like the violins were a bit forced, you know, and a little bit of the heaviness was lost because of the melody. You know, it felt like almost like they were using the violin because they have a violinist. So yeah, but otherwise a completely solid release, you know, and like you said, the artwork is really cool.
Quality stuff. Well, that is it for January. We're going to go to a band that also has kind of defined their own sound as we move into February. Yep, we've got the Chaos Doctrine single Black Friday Bedlam, Joburg industrial thrash blasters, and I think, and I'm not sure about your thoughts, Alec, but this track definitely tethers a little bit more towards the thrash metal element. Raw industrial percussion, it's like solid by Rory. It's crushing, but the tone of the guitar definitely mixed with the high end of the vocal ranges for most of the verses definitely struck me as more an industrial thrash type track. That being said, there is one part in the middle of the track which just goes brutal, hookish, and then you really hear Dr. D's vocal low end come and shine out just for enough. But it was a refreshing track because obviously they've been punching out a lot of slower tempo, more dark and ominous industrial mechanical vibes. So this is a little bit more towards kind of what their original roots were. So I'm excited to hear more from their side. So yeah, Alec, what were your thoughts?
So yeah, like you mentioned, very, very thrashy. The vocals in the beginning are basically Dr. D is channeling Uriah, you know, from Slayer, and it's like basically to the T. It's Tom Uriah's vocals, which can be seen as a good thing to me. Like I was initially put off by those vocals, just to be honest, but that's not an execution thing or anything. It's just a style and a preference thing. The track was mixed well. Was really cool that they got Ewan Sandstrom from Grave in the track as well, doing vocals, some of those more deathy style vocals. But yeah, well produced by Mr. Alex Surridge, and yeah, good track.
Good stuff. more good shit like that to come. So yeah, another band that kind of completely flips it. We had a chat with them prior to this release coming out. It was the Behest 4-track EP. It was called Careless Pursuit of Radiance. Ironically, almost a pitch black release, coming in at a solid 8 minutes 32 seconds. I would say arguably the closest to grindcore in terms of a release that we've would have heard out of South Africa in a while. Obviously sticks to its hardcore ethos, but production-wise is very dense and very in your face. It really does give off the literal, like, chaotic wall of sound that you would imagine at a hardcore grindcore show. So yeah, I can't really fault it. All 4 tracks are killer. Both the 2 first tracks are kicking in at about like 3 minutes total, maybe. Yeah, I can't fault it. I can't wait for their full album that'll probably be just under like 15 minutes. It's going to be huge. Anyway, what were your thoughts, Alec?
When you mentioned the length of time of this album, it actually made me think of that joke where I arrived half an hour late. No, I arrived 15 minutes late to a concert. If the first band is Napalm Death, I've missed their set. If the first band is Sun, then I've only missed the first note. So yeah, like you said, this is a really short EP. I mean, there's songs that are longer than it, but it is what it is. It's, like you said, grindcore, sort of dissonant, brutal hardcore. Most of the people that supported it on the Bandcamp page actually talked about the dissonance of the music, you know, like it makes you feel uncomfortable. It's this wall of sound. It's lo-fi. And I mean, their Bandcamp page is behest.bandcamp.com. So, you know, they've embraced that noisy element and they know that that's what they have going for them.
They do it better than almost anybody. Or so we think. We will maybe tether on that in a little bit later. But yeah, let's move on to another band that kind of pulled all the opposites of what lo-fi was. We're talking about the long-awaited album by Mind Assault, The Cult of Conflict. We had Patrick on. It was awesome to chat about the entire process of it. We've spoken about this in length, this album. It is, I guess, a mellow death / symphonic thrash interpretation on what SA metal is. It does have a strong South African feel in the lyricism, although you would never think by hearing it that it was even an SA band on the face of it. And yeah, honestly, all of the tracks really have kind of grown on me and becomes like steadfast. I was fortunate enough to actually hear the instrumental version of it, and you really do get a true respect for how many layers of orchestration were actually involved in certain tracks, like the title track, Cult of Conflict. So yeah, I can't fault it. It's probably, in my opinion, one of the best releases to come out of South Africa, maybe Africa, this year so far. So yeah, shout out to Pat and the whole crew. You guys knocked it out the park, and yeah, kudos. What were your thoughts, Alec?
Yeah, like you mentioned, premium symphonic, deathy, thrashy, melodeath, you know. You could hear that they've been working on it for almost a decade. You know, it's amazing production. It's a lot of time, a lot of love has gone into it. And I think what's also really cool is how it's been launched. You know, initially, with lockdown, they couldn't really gig for it. So they did the whole Metal for Africa launch where they had like a documentary on it. And they also shot like a music video for almost every song. And I know that Patrick Davidson, he grafted hard and taught himself like the film editing and lighting and all that stuff to make it a reality. And I think if anyone can learn from that, it's like there's no excuse. You can make shit happen. So yeah, it's very encouraging.
A little bit of a lesson to those young bucks. You know, you can learn new traits. So yeah, that knocks out February, jam-packed month. There were other mentions, yes. What's it? Marene and
Marene.
The Marene single, and then there was also a honorable mention of Robyn Ferguson that we wanted to mention. Both those releases, I only had a chance to skim through them, but the Triptych EP by Robyn was quality, and I mean, like instrumentally, she has it down. Production, has only really stepped up more and more. And yeah, in terms of Marene, jumping back, they are what they are. They are kind of South Africa's answer to glam rock, glam metal, if you will, nowadays. And this kind of has all of those nifty, catchy hooks that anybody that would really be a fan of, like having a beer and swinging your hands around and singing along to catchy lyrics. This is pretty much going to give you exactly that. So yeah, tail ending February. What were your thoughts on these two releases, Alec?
So with Marene, it kind of made me think, like normally when we do comparisons, we say, this is Joburg's version of Cape Town's band, whereas I think Marene is basically Cape Town's Deadline. And production is on par. You know, if that's your cup of tea, then you really will like it. Like you mentioned, it's party metal sort of vibe. What's interesting, and I found it slightly weird, is the very synthwave of aesthetic of it, which to me is not necessarily something that I would associate. Like I look at that album art and I think of Dance with the Dead. I don't think old school heavy metal / glam, which is interesting. I mean, everyone has their thing. I think on the Triptych release, what's cool is that it features guests, and one of those guests is actually Mark Pyjama, who we spoke about his release earlier. And yeah, it's solid instrumental technical prog. There's not much more to say. It's well produced. It's also done by a metalcore expert who did the Riddlebreak album EP. It's done by Clinton Watts. So there's that sound, you know. If you want that sound, go to Clint Watts. So yeah, that wraps up February.
That was a big one. Kicking off March now. Gonna have to pull it back to you, because this was an interesting release. This was the Shadownmourne D45 release. It was an interesting one, Frostmourne Hungers. For anyone that doesn't know what D45 is, Alec, you can obviously elaborate, but I think the main thing with this project is also a lo-fi, raw sounding black metal band from South Africa. You wouldn't really hear anything South African in it when you hear about it, which is also probably why it's a project that's been more targeted and marketed overseas than here in South Africa. So I guess kind of explain the D45 in terms of the label that you're with, and just, yeah, maybe explain a little bit about what you had in mind going into this type of project, because it's quality, and I can't wait to hear for the full album to come out later this year. I believe it's later this year.
Yeah, so the album's out on June 25th via Hugger Recordings, but we'll get into that. They actually suggested, the label Hugger suggested that we do this D45. Now, the term D45 comes from digital 45. which was an old vinyl format that had a song on one side and a song on the back, which is why the digital D45 promotion, like album thing, is a format where you release two tracks of an upcoming release. Interestingly, the label has listed the full album as an EP. And it's one of these weird middle grounds because it's 7 songs, but it's touching on 30 minutes long. So who knows? Like, is it an album? Is it an EP? I'm fine with it being called either. Like, I really don't mind. And how did this start? Well, there's a record label overseas called Rottweiler. And before I did Incarnate Deity's album, I approached them and they said, no, they don't sign solo projects, they only sign bands. And then the owner of Rottweiler started something called Haga, and he came to me asking when Incarnate Deity can release on Haga, and I was like, well, I've got a multi-album deal and I don't see myself working on any of the Incarnate Deity stuff anytime soon. And I pitched him 2 possible ideas for something that could go on his project. I pitched him a Infant Annihilator styled, over the top, very digital, very technical release, but like super digital. And I pitched him Mayhem style black metal, and he chose Mayhem style black metal. Are you still there, Lyle? Because you're very still.
Interesting. And the rest I say is this. Looking over here.
You're not moving at all. I think you might need to just quickly.
Hang on.
Lyle will be right back. He's just sorting out his internet problems. Let me just double check. Cool, he's coming. Yeah, that's much better. I think. Don't worry, that's the beauty of being a live unedited video thing.
Yeah,
you know, these things happen.
It is a little bit of a mess here. Yeah, might have just had a bit of a surge or something as we jumped into the next half hour. So yeah, right. So let's pull things down with the next EP, well, single actually, the With Dawn single, Driftwood, The Night, the 3rd installment. We had Kevin on. What did he call the genre? Post-new metalcore or something like that. And this track really has it all. It has like and is singing crazy new metal hooks, just really solid like orchestral, like I guess like almost harmonized singing at the end that just really works well. Yeah, I really liked it. So yeah, can't wait to hear more from them as they move forward with the new band lineup. So yeah, what were your thoughts, Alec?
I love everything that Kevin releases. I'm a huge With Dawn fan. I know that sounds weird being an extreme metalhead sort of person, but yeah, when they released their first album, it actually was one of the things that encouraged me to release, you know, the first Sodus album. So yeah, those guys, their music is always killer, and yeah, I'm not disappointed by this track at all. You'll note that I used quite an old image as their artwork, but that's just because I couldn't find an image for this release, and I needed a release image, and I figured it's got a piece of Driftwood in it, so we may as well use that artwork. But yeah, killer release.
Awesome stuff. Yeah, solid stuff from Kevin and them. So yeah, gonna shake up the genre. We although keeping it still kind of new metal, we're going to the OGs of Cape Town, Eel System. Bit of a interesting new track, Rock Bottom. Kind of like almost has a bit of a rapcore type element, very neo-political in it, but it's Hook City, and I mean they kind of have always established themselves as those guys that have made that sound, and you know, yeah, it's really, if you like Yell System, you will not be disappointed. It's a step up production wise also, which is always a good thing. So yeah, what were your thoughts, Alec?
Like you said, if you like what it is, you're going to love it for what it is. It's very, very solid. It's a taste thing, but I don't like what it is. I've never really liked the whole reggae thing, and they advertise themselves as the world's only African reggae band, reggae metal band. And yeah, I don't like reggae, so I'm not going to like that, but I can appreciate the production, the effort that's gone into it, and the video was solid. I watched it to the end. It's not, you know, so yeah, they've done a good job at what they're trying to do, you know.
Yeah, I agree. They must just keep representing. Another interesting band from Cape Town, different genre, Kill Frenzy. Yeah. End in the Flames. Interesting single, stoner, sludgy metal. Hear a lot of Crowbar and bands like that involved, like really like catchy, almost groove metal type hooks. I like it. Production sounded a little bit muffled, a bit in the mid-range for my liking. I felt like the guitar probably could have had a little bit more buzz on the high end. But in terms of what they tried to bring, and I'm sure this translates to quite a fun live experience with them, I can't really fault it. And the video also had me laughing, so I can't really like say anything bad. I mean, they try to carve their own sound in a pretty abstract genre out here. So yeah, all the more power to them, and yeah, solid work. Can't wait to hear more from them. So yeah, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, like you said, cool video. I dig the sort of Grim Reaper style. Vocally, it wasn't really for me, but that comes down to the whole, it's weird, like you mentioned Crowbar, but they advertise themselves as like a thrash metal outfit, which is not something that really translates to me, because like thrash and doom / sludge are almost opposites, but somehow they're doing a sludgy doom, but a sludgy thrash band, which I guess that's power to them. They're making something unique, you know. They're not trying to copy a template or, you know. So yeah, good job.
Yeah, so I guess there was another mention, although we will be dipping into his album a little later, but an honorable mention for Nuclear Winter from Zimbabwe. We know we were talking about South Africa, but fuck it, I released this. MMD Black releases. We're going to talk about it. I love it. I've never really faulted any of Gary's choices of singles on the album. This particular track kind of mirrors a couple of the other earlier tracks on the album that come up later, and yeah, it suits its place independently. It has a lot of like forward movement to it, a lot of melodic singing mixed in with the screaming, and I mean, it's just always been like a treat to hear it, because I mean, with this weird progressive time changes, it's always been like, always keeps you on your toes. You never really know what you're going to get, but there's always that solid backbeat to his music. So yeah, it was a killer single, and yeah, we'll get to his album in a little bit. But what were your thoughts, Alec?
Solid production, guitar work was fantastic. Vocally, very, very, very strong. Gary, you cannot fault on vocals. He's an amazing harsh vocalist, and as well as a fantastic clean singer. If I was to be nitpicky or fault anything, some of the synths like sort of took me out of the song. It's very similar to what I said about Riddlebreak with fitting in the violins just for the sake of it. You know, some of the synths in this just like took me out of that heaviness. But like you said, there's more to talk about when we talk about his album. So we can move along from...
Yeah. So that was March, and then there was nothing. Literally April, there was not one artist release that actually came out of South Africa. Now, maybe you guys can add in the comments section. Maybe we're wrong. Maybe we missed something. The only the release that we want to actually mention was the Fangs Volume 3 by Mongrel Records. I guess in a way that did offer a kind of a wide variety of SA artists, new and old. A couple of the singles that we had mentioned already from this year were released. A couple of new compositions from what's the Sonic? How do you pronounce the name? Sonicgeist or Sonderbeast?
Sundergeist.
Yeah. Well, there was a lot of interesting releases. Like Rough Magic had a track on there. Let me see. Yeah, then also Robyn Ferguson had a track Grey on there. So it was an interesting kind of filling in the blanks on actually what was very much a quiet April. Now, I mean, like I guess I've said almost everything I can about the compilation. Go check it out on Bandcamp if you guys are interested. But Alec, what do you think the reason for this was? Why do you think we didn't see any major releases like coming out during April this year?
Dude, I think releases come in waves, you know. I think there's like a three month release, like sort of grouping, and then nothing, and then another 3 months. I think it's probably just random, but maybe that's just a trend that I think we've both noticed over the years, is that like you'll get January, February, March, and then a gap. And that it's basically almost like you having 3 terms of music being released during the year, and the month in between is the school holiday for the music kiddies to take a break from doing all their schoolwork, which is their music. So just on the note of this, I think it's cool that there's a compilation that's come out. It's a very eclectic selection from like Stoner Doom to deathcore and metalcore, and then like Springbok Nude Girls releasing something on it as well, which is like, okay. But yeah, ultimately, I hope that kind of thing this kind of release brings more attention to some of the extreme music that's on it. So, you know, like you'll get the fans of that old school rock checking out maybe this collection and maybe getting into some of the heavier music, or maybe saying, no, this is awful, and never wanting to have anything to do with it again. So it could work both ways.
Well, either way, it's nice that somebody's taking the initiative to showcase South African music in whatever context, abstract or eclectic as you will. So yeah, that was pretty much April, which I guess, like you said, maybe it was a school holiday because we're pretty much about to be hit by a tsunami of releases that came out in May. Kicking things off, also another interesting band, Sunken State. Now, they actually had 2 singles that were released of the month. So I guess, yeah, let's start off with Separation Has Begun. Although both of the tracks tend to have the similar production, it's classic metalcore. It's got like beautiful melodic singing if you're into that. It's good, but the main verses have always got that like sense of power and forward motion going into the slower, more sing-along type feel. But yeah, I could totally see this getting a good reaction live with the right crowd. I mean, it's very, I'm not going to say it's radio friendly, but it's got a very almost like Joburg-esque Clockwave Drive feel to it. So yeah, and I say that in the most complimentary way possible. So yeah, what were your thoughts, Alec?
So interestingly, I listened to the second single first, so we'll get to that eventually, because it's not in order. But having listened to the second single first, I found this a little bit disappointing, to be honest. It started off very metalcore has one of two possible states. It has boy bandy singing, or it has like decent, almost melodeath singing. And unfortunately for me, this started off with like the boy bandy-esque, overproduced, clean singing in the beginning. And I very quickly shut down when I'm exposed to that, because I try to envision it live, and having seen tons of videos of metalcore bands with that sort of style of vocals playing live, I know it never really works, just because of the nature of overproducing clean vocals. But it's a well-produced track, and I'll give them a compliment the next time around. So if the guys are watching, carry on watching, because the next song gets a decent review.
Well, let's pull this over to PE with a band that I had not really ever heard of, and whew, man, oh man, you're talking about a sonic wave of brutal death metal with those traditional ethos and a smidgen of hardcore sprinkled across. Man, this is quality. I mean, like the heavy parts are so damn heavy, and the way that the guitars are able to go from that low distorted to that almost supercharged hyper hardcore type style, matched up by the frenetic nature of the vocals to complement it. Man, this whole release was like, it was a trip. And I had only heard one single prior to this, and apparently they'd done like 2 or 3 that had just like slid under my radar. So this album was literally like sit down with a cup of coffee and be like, whoa. Like, it was great. And again, anybody that doesn't know Port Elizabeth, it's a small town. It's not a big place. And the fact that there's so much quality talent coming out there, Ghost is definitely gassed. I don't know if they want to add the American twang to it, but yeah, it is a quality release. I think what's it, 7 or 9 tracks. It was a beast. I digged it, and I will be listening to it a lot more in the future. So yeah, Alec, what were your thoughts, man?
Yeah, I think they sort of pitch themselves as like brutal hardcore. But I love that eerie intro track. I was also super impressed by the merch options on Bandcamp. They have vinyl, they have physical CDs, they have shirts and all that crazy goodness, which is a very rare thing when you live in South Africa, and especially in such a small town, trying to ship that kind of stuff internationally. So kudos to the guys. I hope it pays off for them. There was some very much genty vibes in the music. And honestly, one of my like first reactions was, this sounds like the album when Impending Doom went from 7s to 8 strings. It sounds like that crushing, sludgy deathcore vibes, which somehow has clarity when you have the high pitched guitar. So, but like, yeah, that's kind of a compliment in itself, being compared to Impending Doom. So, yeah.
Oh yeah, serious kudos to the guys. Serious kudos. So yeah, well, I guess next we're moving on to the South African Star Wars Everybody has been talking about this. Bob the Butcher has been on a rampage, inflicting covers across every noticeable death metal release in the last 10 years. Kudos to Duncan and them. And their first single that they've kind of showcased what their new sound and what the album's going to be is the Shadowy Descent of Gaia. So, yeah, I mean, when we spoke to Duncan, he hinted on the fact that they were going to add a little bit more almost brutal death sensibilities, but add some weird nuances with the new band dynamic. And I think judging by this first single, you pretty much get a good feeling that the album's gonna probably be the most, I would say, the most technically intricate, but also the most broadest sounding of anything prior. And I'm excited to hear that because, I mean, I've always said this when it comes to bands, especially when it comes to Vulvodynia, there's always going to be 3 or 4 tracks from every album that are going to make it into the set list. And as long as they've got 4 or 5 smashes on this album that they will know that will rip the crowd apart, then they've got a stable, solid release. And the artwork looks wicked. Production sounds great. Yeah, I can't fault it. Their album comes out, I believe, 12th or something of September. So, yeah, out on Unique Leader Records. So that's kudos to the guys. They really are waving the flag high, and this is definitely going to be another step in the evolution of Vulvodynia. So can't wait to hear it. So, yeah, Alec, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's like you mentioned that it's going to be a super diverse album. I think it's actually going to be probably the most mature content that they've ever released. You know, when people think of slam, they think guitar goes chug chug, vocalists go brie, and I think this sort of redefines that expectation. There's some orchestration very subtly in the back behind the crazy tech death style guitars, and yeah, this is a solid single, and I think this is going to be a really cool album. And yeah, good job to the guys.
Yeah. Well, let's pull it down to the local Cape Town boys. We're going to go a little bit more thrashy here with the new EP from Hulver, Baptized in Blasphemy. It's released on MMD Black towards the middle of May. I can't remember because that's how I am. Anyway, I loved it. Trying to be as objective as possible. When I heard the tracks, immediately the production was the thing that stood out to me. I would almost call this an homage to a Carcass vs. Slayer Baby, vocally and in terms of some of the sounds and some of the mid-tempo thrash riffs. But really, when you mentioned like party metal, and when I think of Hulver, I think of party thrash. It's gives you everything that you kind of want in terms of a thrash metal band. It's got all the hooks. It's got all the crazy frenetic soloing. There's a guest appearance by Wazzy on the title single, and I believe there's a music video of that coming out soon. Yeah, really solid contribution from Vian, also the newest member, with a bit of riffage. Like, really can't wait to hear what these guys come up with. I gave them high praise for Ancestral Communication last year. Yourself a little bit different in terms of production. So I think, yeah, I gave it 4. If I'd given it 4.5 last year, then this EP would get a solid 5 for me, just in terms of like crazy progression in their sound and the evolution in production across the board. So yeah, enough from me. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think they've really stepped up their game here. It's really nice to see a band improve. You know, I mean, Daniel Lowe has always been shreddy McShredison. So, like, I mean, technically he's always been super proficient, but he's really stepped up his game when it comes to production. The music cruises, it's intense all the way through, you left gasping for air. I really do also like his vocal style, because it's not death metal, it's not black metal, it's not thrash metal, it's like some weird amalgamation of the three things, you know. Like, I don't quite know where to place it, other than like it's like a less shouty Alexi Laiho, I guess, you know.
Or possible, like, you know, a slightly less brutal Carcass in the Heartwork era, you know, like something like that, but definitely quality release. So yeah, we're moving from technical thrash or meat and potato thrash to tech death. Oh God, this track, a band that you also close relationship with, the Abhorrent Anomaly single featuring Demon Stealer, Gears of Gluttony, was released exclusively on Bandcamp initially. I believe probably digital will come in the near future, but yeah, anybody that knows tech death and knows specifically the melodic tech death sound that this band has tried to get would not be disappointed. I mean, in terms of vocals, Sahil Demon Stealer adds such a nice flavor to what was already a very defined, very intricate, dense type of produced tech death sound. Not many bands, very few even in this country, tend to look anything towards that, along the weird time changes, the weird fillers, and all of that. So we don't get treated to a lot. It's like, you guys definitely don't put a lot of material out, but when you do, it's kind of worth the wait. And I really enjoyed this. I think production wise, personal opinion, probably could do with a new touch of paint when the album eventually comes out, because you guys always tend to add new bits of flavor as you learn new things. So yeah, not much really to critique. If you're a fan of proper tech death with searing vocals, low and high, and crazy time changes, and real musicianship showed off in almost a chauvinistic manner, you will not be disappointed with this. These guys always deliver the goods. So yeah, I guess your headspace going into writing this specific track, Alec, what were you and the guys thinking going into this one?
So when I started writing material for Abhorrent Anomaly, I always write music that I think Reno won't be able to play, and then he plays it easily. So it's always like a technical challenge, like, let me challenge Reno's ability and see what he does. And then so the sort of relationship is, I'll write one layer of guitar, and then he'll write a second layer, and I'll write bass, and he'll write drums, and then I'll write lyrics. And that's basically how we do things as a band. What was really nice was I wrote quite a lot of the majority of the lyrics for this track, but I wasn't in the right headspace for performing it. And Demon Stealer volunteered his services, so we roped him in, and I didn't tell him any of the patterns. I didn't tell him anything. I just said, just take these lyrics, add to it, make it your own, do what you want. And he churned out something I liked, and I just added the backing vocals just to polish up the track. In terms of production, I do get what you mean, though, because it's weird. When I released the first single, Transcend Humanity, it's kind of difficult, and it's part of why we don't release music that often. It's kind of like the best thing I've ever written. Like, I didn't know how I was going to top it, and it gave me complete writer's block and like almost fear of failure because of how good Transcend Humanity is. And that's that's just how it is from my side of things. So I can understand like the production side of things. And obviously, if this and Transcend and Oceanic Blasphemy end up in an album, like a complete pass needs to be done so that they sound like they come from the same album, not different tracks, you know? So.
But in a bubble, a smasher of a track. Well, I guess, yeah, now we're going to finally move back over to Zimbabwe with something completely different for use of a Monty Python term. The Nuclear Winter long-awaited album Greystone. This was an album that was pushed probably since last year, September, to be honest. We've spoken to Gary a couple of times. This album, like, audibly, you could argue all of his albums in a bubble are amazing. This album offers obviously something that tethers even a little bit more towards both the extreme polarities of the sounds that he attempts to go for, either on the brutal melodic industrial death or the really almost EDM style, like danceable, like I wouldn't say synthwave, but like a more bouncy electronic backbeat as opposed to drum layouts. And this album kind of is like an album of two tales. The first half of it being like forward in your face, just showcasing those weird multiple layers of synths, harmonies, and searing vocals with powerful riffs. And then towards track 7, going into specifically track 8 being Hidden Shrine, you really hear him trying to showcase his other musical influences. Like you can tell he's been affected by the earlier dance and almost industrial types of upbeat, like synth sounds that in bands like Nine Inch Nails would have used, for example. So you can hear that. You can hear him obviously taking a chance and getting adventurous on his vocals. Also with that, somebody else similar to Dead Man Risen, just trying to push the envelope. And honestly, compared to all of the albums, it probably stands out as the most adventurous release that he's done sonically and musically. I can't really fault it. If you're into the Nuclear Winter sound, you might be interested in what he's actually been getting up to now. Again, somebody that we can never really get a fix on what he's going to deliver when it comes to an album. And this album was full of surprises, produced to perfection, and yeah, can't fault it. Shout out to Gary. You're a master, a one-man behemoth, if you will. So yeah, Alec, what were your thoughts, man?
I think it's a completely like solid industrial death metal, melodic death metal release. I normally say a lot, but when it comes to Gary's music, but I think Lyle said basically it all. What's really cool is the experimental, like Lyle mentioned, the experimental nature of this release. Not synthwave like you mentioned, but more like a dark synth, almost a electronic body music sort of feel to it, you know. So it's, I guess, metalheads and goths alike might enjoy it, you know.
Definitely doesn't fail to deliver. Shout out to Gary. Always got to mention the guy. He's a beast. So yeah, we're gonna finally get to the Sunken State second single of the month, tail ending it. This was Swindler, and I guess I'll start off again and let you get into your thoughts about it. But definitely a top up in my opinion from the first one. Faster kickstart to the track. Same production. Again, if you're into that type of sound, you won't really be disappointed. I do enjoy when they do try to be a little bit more forward and harsher on the vocals with the guitar, because it really gets to show their chops if you will. So, yeah, I liked it. I mean, it definitely got me more interested in hearing their upcoming album. So, like, again, we'll wait to hear what they come up with next. I'm sure they got a couple of tricks up their sleeves. So, yeah, what were your thoughts, Alec?
Yeah, and like I said during their first song, when I was talking about their first song, like I actually heard this first. And in contrast to what I said for the last single, I actually really enjoyed this. It seemed fresh. When the clean vocals kicked in, it wasn't boy bandy. There was some distortion in the guy's voice. The music video was well done. There's even like a slammy section with some like ultra guttural gore grind style distortion vocals. Like you don't really hear that kind of stuff mixed into metalcore. So like, yeah, this was a killer release, and I think if they can make more of their music sound like this than the other track, then it's something to be really excited about. Yeah, well done.
Oh yeah. And finally, tail ending May. We got, I guess, the next level of stalwart in terms of South African notoriety, in terms of metal. We had the single from Peasant, By the Crack of the Bell, which will be coming out on their upcoming album Kingdom, if I'm correct. So, yeah, we were talking earlier about Behest. Ironically enough, like I believe that Audrey, the members of Behest and members of Peasant actually work together. So it's just ironic that these like two forces end up knocking out a hardcore sound. That being said, I think we were talking about that brutal, dissonant wall of sound, almost grindcore nature of Behest. I think in terms of a well-polished, but still in-your-face, brutal sound, Peasant kind of take what Behest has and notches it up to the next level. They have all the angst and brutality. We know that they can crush it live, just like Behest, but the level in hooks layered with the production of the vocals just sitting perfectly in the middle. In my opinion, this track from Peasant holds them in good stead for what is probably going to be, in my opinion, maybe the best release to come out of South Africa in terms of a well-polished end sound. So, yeah, and the artwork looks killer also. I want that. And, yeah, they've got merch available on their Bandcamp. Also, one of the very few bands that goes all out with vinyls and all of that. So, yeah, go support them. But, yeah, quality release to end off May, in my opinion. But what were your thoughts, Alec?
Such a solid release. When I saw the thumbnail for the music video, I was like immediately amped, clicked on it. It cruised for the 2.5 minutes or whatever length of time it was. I think it was quite a short song, but top-notch hardcore and an absolutely brilliant music video, excellent execution. It is what it is, and I think it's probably the best hardcore to come out of this country, like by far. Yeah, no one can even really touch them. Yeah, and if you guys want merch, you better hurry up, because when I checked their Bandcamp page, like a lot of their stuff is out of stock. So head on over, get their merch if that's what you want to do. But yeah, solid band, solid release.
Yeah, and that pretty much brought us to where we are right now. There has not been really any releases for the middle part of June so far, but there are some banging upcoming releases coming out. We have, obviously, we mentioned Sunken State. Their album Solace in Solitude will be coming out. Peasant, their EP Kingdom. The Shadownmourne album, The Frozen Throne, will be coming out. Vulvodynia. Do you know the name Prenutius Infinity? Prenutius Infinity. God damn it, Duncan, and your freaking Latin. Anyway, that we have Rumors of the Nerve Zero EP. We have a Displeased Disfigurement EP/album possibly finishing, and even a Dead Man Risen. So yeah, we've got some interesting stuff coming up, but I guess as we kind of wrap up this conversation, Alec, there's a little bit of a review. What are your thoughts been in the last 6 months in terms of SA metal and where we are, where we're going?
I think it's I think lockdown has made the bands that are going to release music more productive. Like, not even just saying the last 6 months. If I look at 2020, there were 2 releases by the Fallen Prophets, you know. That's like almost unheard of, you know. And I think a lot of bands generally release 1 album in their entire career, and there are bands now that have released EP after EP, album after album. So it's great to see the productivity coming out, you know. And I think, I mean, we had 24 releases in less than 6 months to go over, and that's assuming we found them all. You know. So I think it's really, we're in a really cool place. Yeah, that's all from me.
Yeah. I guess that can wrap up our special lockdown chat this Sunday. And actually, for the next 3 weeks, we're going to be shaking up our lockdown chats a bit, and we're going to be talking a little bit about public relations. This week, we're actually going to be joined with the man, the myth, the legend himself, Dave Devo of Devo Graphic Photography and PR and artist management. It is going to be interesting, and we have a couple of other interesting guests as we march on to our 50th episode, Alec. We're close. We're getting there. So yeah, again, thanks to everybody that tuned in. Hope this acted informative. Hopefully you guys will click all the links that we'll have in the description. All the releases for you guys to check out will be there for you to support. And yeah, please do support, because the bands do actually care about that, and it does in fact help. So yeah, Alec, I guess for this weird lockdown Thursday special, let's call it a night. What do you say?
100%, man.
Awesome. Guys, keep well. We will see you this Sunday. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Give us your thoughts on if there are any bands that we missed out on. We'd love to hear from you. And yeah, just keep supporting the local metal, guys. Just keep going. Also, guys, have a wicked one. See you Sunday. Bye.